Well, good morning, lovely people, and welcome to St Mary's Vicarage on this Tuesday, the 23rd of February, on what is a fantastically bright and glorious day today outside. Quite why it couldn't have been like this yesterday on my day off, and I could have got out and about with my camera. Now I legitimately have permission from Dorset Police to do so. Yes, bit of a dull day yesterday, so I was inside doing bits and pieces and such. But it was good on Sunday to be once again back in church, taking a physical service. It was good to be down at St Rumbold's Pentridge with the lovely folk down there from Pentridge and Woodyates. Also a bit of a sad day as well. If you were watching the service, we said farewell to lovely Margaret Owen. Margaret's been living in the village for around 57 years. She came there with her husband and bought a almost derelict cottage, I think, that she said it was not fit for human habitation. And she came there with her family and restored the cottage and has lived there as well. Some of you may or may not know as well that Margaret has done an awful lot of work internationally with supporting groups of people who are oppressed or in war and suffering from starvation, all sorts of things. She's done some absolutely marvellous work, and we will be sad to see her go. She's very much one of the personalities of our village down at Pentridge. But we wish you well, Margaret, if you're listening this morning. You do tune in, moving up to London. I know you'll be closer to your family there and everything, and we hope you keep in touch. But it was good to be back in church, even with the sort of restrictions, and to celebrate a Holy Communion service yesterday. Now, of course, yesterday, the big announcements that we were waiting for from the Prime Minister. That's right, Bill. I think she did a lot of work in Iraq. Announcements yesterday. I think nobody is really surprised that we're talking about a slow journey out of this particular valley. And in a sense, that makes a lot of sense. This is our third lockdown now, and I'm absolutely sure that nobody wants to go back to this later in the summer or the autumn again. All of us as a nation, as individuals, as a government, we've all learnt a lot along the way. Lots of mistakes have been made, both nationally and personally. I'm sure we've all made mistakes or thought we should have maybe done something a bit better. But we've learnt a lot over this particular journey, and making sure we get this right this time, I think, is really, really important, so that we can at least get into the second half of this year. We can get into the summer and have a reasonably normal summer. I'm not sure whether foreign holidays or travel will be a possibility, because of course it's not, in that instance, it's not just what is happening in our nation, but how fast other countries, European countries or worldwide nations, are getting to grips with the vaccination scheme and such like. So all of that's a bit of an unknown. But hopefully we'll move into June and July, and it sounds like most of the restrictions will be gone. Though, of course, we are going to have to live with COVID, coronavirus, forever now, in the same way that we live with seasonal flu. And it may mean that more of us are having to be vaccinated. I had my first flu jab this year. Kate has her COVID jab later this week. I hope to get mine by the end of April. So we sort of will hopefully move into, you know, some kind of normality as we go into the summer. And, you know, some positive things there are, you know, there's community and social events that are being planned for later in the year. We're hoping the big session will go ahead here in Handley, our sort of one-day music festival that we do. Planning is underway with that, and the idea is for it to happen. Well, they've got two possibilities, either the end of June, but then they do have another date for potentially September. So we're hoping some of those things will be possible, and that will be good. Kate and I, as far as you know, we like to travel a bit. Last year, I think I booked 3 different trips in the end. The original plan was to drive to Italy, something we've wanted to do for many years. We've only ever had one holiday in Italy, and that was many years ago when Kate was when we were expecting Alex, and we went to Assisi, or just outside Assisi, which is a place I wanted. We had a lovely week's holiday there. That's not true. We have been to Italy before. We went with the family, went to Sorrento several years ago when the boys were quite young. So we thought we would drive down, and we do have some friends, lovely friends that live in Switzerland, and we might be able to pop in and see them on the way and such like. So we had planned to do that last year. That was the plan, because we've now reached that stage in family life where our 2 boys are really sort of planning or doing their own things, and it's not they don't want to come on holiday with mum and dad. They have always enjoyed the family holidays and have liked them, but they have other things and priorities drawing them away. So it was going to be Kate and I. Anyhow, that didn't happen. Then we booked Holland. That had to be changed, and then we were lucky. We did escape to France for a few days, but had to come back quite quickly. And we thought, well, okay, we'll do Italy this year. Looking at it now, realistically, that might be a bit of a gamble. Actually, so I'm starting to now look at doing a bit of a sort of a road trip around the UK. You know, we are really blessed. I think we forget how beautiful and what a wonderful country we have. Okay, the weather, though it's bright sunshine outside today, the weather is not. The weather's not brilliant sometimes. It has to be said, you know, if you get away to, you know, southern climes of France and Spain or whatever, you've got a much higher hit rate of having some nice sunshine. There's no doubt about that. But we do have a fantastic country, an amazing country, and sometimes you need to talk to those who are not from the UK. And I have friends from America and Canada and Australia, and they're always, you know, if you listen to them, they talk about the beauty of the United Kingdom and the, you know, just fabulous countryside and cities and things that we have. This time last year, it was around about this time last year, we went to Manchester for a few days. It was part of Kate's birthday treat, and I was really impressed with how Manchester had progressed and changed. I went there many, many years ago when I was a photographer for something, I can't remember, there's some job up there, and it was very run down, but it's a very smart cosmopolitan place now. So Mrs. Vicarage and I are thinking about, well, what I might do is get the maps out and plan a bit of a road trip around the UK. We did it many years ago when I first went to theological college, and we really didn't have two shillings to rub together. So we sort of went up the east coast of the UK, up to Scotland. We got as far as Inverness. And then we came down the west coast of Scotland that way, in the west coast of the UK. We had a tent in the back of the car. We camped most of the time, and I think treated ourselves to about 3 B&Bs or something on the trip, so we could have a bath and a bit of comfort. And it was a really great experience because it was before children, and we got to see some really interesting places. So we may well do that. And of course, I never go anywhere without my camera. And from a photographic perspective, there's some spectacular places in the UK to photograph. So that's what we might be looking to do this year. But I believe a lot of people will be as well. So I think lots of places are going to be booked up. But I think if you're just 2 people travelling on your own, then it's a bit easier. Maybe there'll be a renaissance on coach holidays. It's something I've always wanted to do, oddly enough. I've watched some fascinating programs on the TV about these sort of coaching holidays that used to happen in the sort of 50s and 60s, which were very popular coach firms taking people all over the place, and the sort of camaraderie on the coaches. And you do still see them around. I mean, here in Dorset in the summer, we see them coming in, bringing people in, and lots of the hotels down at Weymouth and such like have coach parties in. So maybe there's often there, and it'll be good for the UK too, because as I go out and about with my camera, legally of course, having spoken to people in the tourist trade, people who own caravan parks, our own caravan site here, and people who have things down on the coast and such like, they've really struggled, and a little bit of a renaissance of the British holiday might be good this year, so we'll see what happens. Anyhow, as far as church things are going, the announcements yesterday really didn't change anything very much, to be honest with you. The protocols that we have in play at the moment will remain, so it's social distancing and masks, no singing of hymns. That will come, I think, as we get into the summer and all restrictions are lifted. We will better get our hymn books out again and start singing. We'll better start the choir again, which was great. We could look forward towards Christmas and having the choir and singing. So all of those things will happen, but it will be slow. Anyhow, the good news is this coming Sunday, we will be having a physical Holy Communion service in St Mary's Church, social distanced, of course. We won't be able to sing hymns, but we'll play some music on the sound system and such like. So that will also be broadcast online. So if you would like to come to receive communion, a physical service, then please do come to St Mary's, or you can watch it online. A few people have asked me, if you've had your COVID jab, do you still need to wear a face mask in church? The answer is yes. Even though there's new research coming in about how the vaccines can also deal with the stopping the spread of the virus and such like. I think until the vaccine is really well established and the majority of people have had them, including the vicar, then we need to just continue to follow these protocols for a bit longer. But it won't be too long, hopefully, before all of those things can disappear. And I'm really looking forward to, hopefully in the summer, being able to start our family worship again, being able to start breakfast church again, being able to reopen our Magnific Cafe on Thursdays and get all of these things up and running again, and getting, village life back to what it was, that social communal aspect of it, being able to go down the tap, sit around the cricket pitch on a Friday evening and enjoy all of that. It is coming, folks, but we've just got to be patient for a little bit longer. So let's keep our face in the right direction and plod on, and we'll get there eventually. Now, speaking of patience, my patience has been massively tried this morning with regard to tech. I'm having tech issues this morning, so the computer's working. I'm not a huge fan of Microsoft, I have to say, though many of you will use it. And the Lent course that we will begin tomorrow, More Than Words, looking at prayer and spirituality and personality types. So I've gone to my files. I've got all of these files because it was part of my dissertation I wrote for when I was studying theology. And the course is all on files. Of course, what I have discovered, because I haven't run this, the last time I ran this course, I think was 2009, I think, something like that. So quite some time ago. So I went to all my files, of course, to discover that they're WPS files, if that means anything to you. That was before Microsoft Office and such like, when you had Microsoft Works, and it was when I used a Mac. Now I have Microsoft Office on my Mac I can open up, but not these files. So this morning I went to, and over the weekend went to try and open some of these files, and cannot open them. Now I did have a converter program that I had on Mac, but it doesn't seem to like them anymore. And I've now tried downloading two different converters, which will not download in order to read these files, so I can convert them to Microsoft documents, Office documents, and then PDFs, so they can be emailed out, which I was hoping would happen today. Now, it's not the end of the world, folks. If I can't get these files to open on my computer, it means, sadly, what I'm going to have to do, I do have all of the files as hard copies, of course, as part of my dissertation, but it means I have to sit here and physically scan them in one by one into my scanner and convert them to PDFs, which is going to take some time. So I do apologise if you don't get the files for tomorrow's course until tomorrow morning. But it might take me a bit of time to sort that out. I've got a couple of other things to try. But if anybody has a version on their computer of Microsoft Works and can read WPS files, I'd be very happy to email the files that I need to them so they can read them and then convert them to PDFs and send me them back. That would be very helpful if anybody is able to do that. If not, I shall struggle on, but I warn people not to come close to the vicarage later on, as they may hear expletives coming from the vicar's study as I try to wrestle with the tech. Anyhow, this afternoon, I'm wearing one of my many hats. I wear many hats, but I'm running you may have seen on Facebook, a poster. I've got a few spaces on that. So as part of the what they call Continual Ministerial Education, CME, it's abbreviated to in the diocese. Part of that is a diocesan wellbeing program which they introduced a couple of years ago. And these are courses that the diocese puts on, which aren't necessarily about how to run church or run a youth group or worship or anything like that. They're courses to encourage people to think about their own well-being and creativity and such like. And over the past couple of years, I've run about three courses a year for the diocese. I did some in 2019. I did 3 last year, though most of those were online apart from one of them. And we're planning them this year. So I run courses on photography. So this afternoon at 2 o'clock, I'm running a masterclass in black and white photography, how to improve your black and white photography with some sort of simple tips and techniques going right back to the great masters like Ansel Adams and Henri Cartier-Bresson and such like. It's only a 2-hour course. Normally these courses will be a whole day, and when we did them in 2019, people met me at various locations. We did a day at Hancock Abbey, we did a day down at Twynham Village, and we've done street photography in Weymouth, all sorts of things we've done. But obviously, as we can't sort of go places to do this at the moment, this is sort of an online course. So we're going to look at some tips on how to improve your black and white photography, and then processing and developing your pictures using software like Lightroom or Capture One. There's all various sorts of software. Anyhow, I do have a few places available on that course. They're open to anybody in the Oxford Diocese Salisbury Diocese who is lay or ordained. If you'd like to join the 2-hour sessions from 2 till 4, send me an email or a private message and I will send you the Zoom link. So that's what I'm doing this afternoon. But I hope I hope by then I've sorted out this sorting these files. Thanks, Peter. Yes, if worse comes to worse and I need things scanning in, I mean, what I'll do is rescanning. I'll basically just scan the stuff I need for tomorrow, and then I'll have to do it week by week, so that will simplify it. What I was just hoping is that all of these files, I could convert all of these files this morning, and that would be it. And I was just going to convert them into PDF files which everybody can read. But we'll have a crack at it after this. Anyhow, excuse me, drinking coffee this morning. Now, I hope you've, I'm not sure where my copy is, but Lent Extra. I hope you're enjoying the Lent Extra booklet and you're finding that handy and using that on your Lenten journey. I've also produced a new Lenten card. As you saw on I produced these last week. I've got some others to put out in church, so that was for Ash Wednesday. But I've done another version of this, which has got Pope Francis's suggestions for fasting in Lent, which is not about fasting from chocolate or cigarettes or things like that, but thinking about our way of life and how we live. So there will be some of those available in church. Anyhow, let's turn to our reading for today. And this is the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 23, verses 1 to 12. Addressing the people and his disciples, Jesus said, "The scribes and the Pharisees occupy the chair of Moses. You must therefore do what they tell you and listen to what they say, but do not be guided by what they do, since they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy burdens and lay them on men's shoulders, but will they lift a finger to move them? Not they. Everything they do is done to attract attention, like wearing broader and pharilactades and long tassels, like wanting to take the place of honour at banquets and the front seats in the synagogue, being greeted obsequiously in the market squares and having people call them rabbi. You, however, must not allow yourselves to be called rabbi, since you only have one master and you are all brothers. You must call no one on earth your father, since you have only one Father, and he is in heaven. Nor must you allow yourselves to be called teachers, for you have only one teacher, the Christ. The greatest among you must be your servant. Anyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and anyone who humbles himself will be exalted." So a very interesting text. Of course, Matthew's Gospel is written very much for a Jewish audience, Jews who had, Israelites who had taken up Christianity. And of course, there was a lot of tension there, and you find it in Paul's letters, the epistles as well, in a sense that as a Jew, if you had in essence become a Christian or were following Christ, did you still have to adhere to Jewish regulations and law? And of course, Paul waxed lyrical about that, and he talks about that phrase there, the weight upon his back. And there's lots of arguments there. But here, it's very interesting that, you know, Jesus is having a pop at organised religion. And I quite like that. You know, this is the Lord having a go at organised religion. And those of us who are in organised religion, whether we are ordained or lay people and everything, sometimes we need to just take a step back and have a bit of a look at ourselves from time to time. And I have to say, my experience of this is the church is very bad at this and finds it very, very difficult. It's very easy to live in a very churchy bubble. And I've always considered myself a bit lucky that I've, on the whole, avoided that quite a bit. And it may be the fact that I wasn't really brought up as a Christian in that sense. I wasn't brought up in church. My mother was a Roman Catholic, and she had particular issues with the Roman Catholic Church in Spain. My father would put in a census that he was Anglican, but I was never taken to church. I got involved with church as a teenager at boarding school, and then after I left school. Subsequently, most of my friends, the vast majority of friends, are not Christian or churchy, or my old friends at all. So I've always had their refreshing perspective on things, and they're very quick to remind me when I've started to get in my churchy bubble and starting to think that everybody thinks the way I do. And that's a very interesting thing, because, you know, with my rural field officer hat on and mission hat, I attend quite a lot of seminars and such like, talking about mission and outreach. And one of the things that strikes me often is that in these discussions, a common mistake is made that people who aren't churchy think churchy or understand how the church thinks. And of course they don't. And some of them aren't interested at all. And what you can't then do is use language and mission tools that, you know, would be, that those who are involved with church would understand, for those who don't really have any connection with it, and it's really quite a challenge. So it's quite important sometimes to step back and look at ourselves, and also I think the nonsense of it. I don't get me wrong, I love the church, and I like the dressing up and all of that, but I do take it with a pinch of salt, because let's face it, some of it is ludicrous. In the right setting, I've been involved with high masses and lots of adornments of clergy in robes and lacy cotters and all this sort of stuff and everything, and it does have a bit of a wow factor if you're used to it. But if you're not and you see it as an outsider, it looks like a bunch of men all dressed up, and it's you've got to sometimes understand it from that perspective, and that's particularly what I like in this passage here from Matthew's Gospel, that Jesus is just saying sometimes you just got to step back and look at yourself. And what he's saying is actually, it's interesting, because at the beginning he says, this practice what you preach. He is saying to them, listen to what they're saying about Holy Scripture and such like, but don't necessarily emulate them, because what's happened is they've got into that sort of bubble of religion, which is sort of self-supporting and such like. And I think this is one of the problems with the church today, and in a lot of the mission conferences I go to, it fails to understand this. It fails to really, really grasp how people who are not involved with the church, outside the church, view the church and see the church. That's quite an interesting thing. And here it is in black and white in the gospel from Jesus himself. Anyhow, that's our passage for today. Of course, there's another little bit in there about call nobody father. That's always been interesting, because, of course, in high church traditions, Anglo-Catholic traditions, vicars are called father. I don't think anybody's called me father here in Handley. I had a few people in my previous parish benefice who were from that ilk who used to call me father. But when I was a curate, I was in a very high church, Anglo-Catholic church then. And of course, I was ordained. I was 27 years old. I hadn't even become an earthly father in the sense of Alex wasn't born. And I have to say, I did find it very, very bizarre that people who were a lot older and wiser than me, parents and grandparents, would call me Father Richard. But it was a term of endearment rather than anything else. But there we go. Anyhow, folks, that's the passage for today. Do read the little bit that accompanies the Bible readings today in Lent Extra. I'll be with you tomorrow morning, and hopefully, tech permitting, scanning or whatever I need to do, we'll be having our first session of More Than Words, our Lent course, tomorrow evening. And we'll be just doing a bit of an introduction to prayer and spirituality, and then we'll be doing the first sort of exercise, which will be identifying our prayer personality and prayer types. So I hope you can join us for that tomorrow. Anyhow, let's just finish with the grace. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Do take care, folks. God bless.